Hi all, a new day and new stories from Ocean Story. Just listen to this story. I am 32 years old. I am married to my wife Lillian, who is 30 years old. We have been together for a long time. And now we are expecting our first child. The birth is due in about 2 weeks. And now I'll tell you what happened before. Lillian, her brother Dylan, and her late sister Ellie. They were all raised by my Aunt Violet. My aunt was a former foster child. She never found a permanent family as a child. Lillian never registered in the system. Therefore, she was never able to find any biological family. However, she still has hope. She believes she has half-siblings somewhere in the world. When Lillian and her brothers were little, her father decided to quit his job as a mechanic and leave his wife to raise the children alone. It was very stressful for her. She was so worried. Then eventually she lost Ellie. She was the oldest among the children. What happened to the older sister? It tore their hearts apart, and it was another big blow to my aunt, who was doing her best for her children at the time. Lillian talked about how her aunt suffered terribly. What happened to her mental and physical health? Under the pressure of all this, it was very bad, and she was crying at night. And how grateful my aunt is that she was able to recover over time and be present in their lives to this day. Now my aunt's financial situation is starting to improve, but she is far from rich, and not that she has a lot of money. She also doesn't drop everything to help her children all the time. Lillian and Dylan told me stories that their aunt had to give so much of herself when the children were growing up, that their aunt broke her physical condition so badly that she and her brother thought she would never be able to do anything again. Because she had no support, there was no one who could help her at all. It was just her and her brother, and their aunt did not want to burden them with these difficult circumstances. Now we live next to my wife's aunt and brother. My aunt does not offer to look after our children, and thank God for that. It's not that we expect her to, but she doesn't want to. Let me explain why I say this. She didn't pay for our wedding. She also didn't throw us a party of any kind on the occasion of the birth of a child, her grandson. I might add, my aunt is a wonderful person, and my wife will always say that my aunt is the best mom for her and that she would never want to lose her. That week, my parents were visiting us. That evening, we had a fight. Back when I was engaged to my wife, my mom and dad said that our wedding wasn't as great as they expected and that my wife hadn't invested a penny to make it beautiful and cozy. I told them that it was our wedding, not theirs, so she had every right to pay or not pay for it. I calmly asked them not to mention it again. Then they knew that this whole situation was already in the past for us. But my parents were worried. The fact that we decided to live next to my aunt, when she gives nothing and does nothing, what an aunt and future grandmother should do for a child. Then my parents started talking about that my wife feels bad about her own aunt not taking care of her, that she is a useless guardian for her, and that the parents know that the aunt was probably hoping that she would be offered to look after our child while we both work, and that she will be the one to throw her a big children's party. Then she would offer to be there to help with every little thing. I told my parents that they shouldn't talk about what my wife wants, and how dare they judge my aunt so harshly when they know what she went through before. I told my parents that I didn't want them to upset my family with their words, my wife and my son. So I tried to protect them as best I could. I asked my parents to leave the house. My mother said that I was punishing them for that they sympathize with my wife and want the best for her than her own aunt, who took care of her all her life. Dad said I should have let my wife decide whether to leave or not if they were talking off topic, but she was already upset by those words. My wife just knows that I am happy to intervene and help, but wasn't my reaction to my parents too critical? Easton, I have always believed and will continue to believe that it is the job of each partner to rein in their parents in time before it's too late and they say something stupid. You did what you had to do, like a real man. Your aunt is not a bad mother or grandmother either. Reading, what a very hard life. She did the best she could, and she deserves your respect. Grayson, I'm sorry, but your parents are complete assholes. They are doing stupid things by judging your aunt and feeling sorry for your wife. Your mom and dad offered criticism under the guise of sympathy. None of this is up to them, what your aunt can or cannot afford, neither in terms of money nor in terms of time. Personally, you have done well for your wife. After all, if you had kept silent then, it would definitely have been perceived by your parents as tacit approval of their words. It's amazing that you are so sensitive to your wife, considering how much your parents lack compassion. In this regard, your wife is lucky to have you to protect her and to have you as her husband. My next story. My wife and I have a teenage son who is 16 years old. That's how many years ago I was drunk. I got drunk in a local bar and slept with another woman. As a result, we had another child who was also 16 years old. Surprisingly, my wife forgave me, but she made it clear that she doesn't want to be around my other son. I take my son for every weekend every 2 weeks. My wife just goes to her parents when my son is with me. That week it was Thursday. My wife and I were going to visit my in-laws. My son was also invited, but her mom was not invited to that evening. So she asked me if I could give her a ride. I had no reason to refuse. I agreed, but when my wife found out about it, she said that although she had no problem with my son being there, but she really didn't want him to go with us. I tried to convince her, but unfortunately I could not. So I asked both my sisters if either of them could take my son with them. They both agreed. I immediately called my son. I told him I had a problem. I asked him to come with one of his aunts. He said he understood and was not upset. An hour later, we went there. Both my sisters came, but my son was not with either of them. My sisters both said he was not there. I called him and then I called his mom and all his friends that I had contacts with, but no one knew where he was. A search was announced. Everyone there went to look for him, and a few hours later my friend found him. I was so angry with him that I yelled at him, and in my anger, I said how he made us all worry about him as a punishment. I took away his phone, the one I had bought for him earlier. His mom called me bastard and demanded that I give him his phone back. Just to clarify, she did not go that night because there was a dangerous road and she's not a very good driver because of her vision problems. So I told her that she didn't have to go. Sadie, I'm sorry that your wife is upset about your infidelity, but she is taking all of her anger and resentment toward you out on your son. You have 2 children, and if your wife doesn't want to see that, then you both need to end this relationship. Your son deserves to have his father in his life just as much, just like his other son from his first wife. If your one son is allowed to go to an event with you, then your other son is automatically allowed too. And if you love and want to support your wife, but you can't stand up for your child, then she will definitely be better off without you. Alexa, listen, I forgive you for sleeping with another woman, but get that child away from me, who has literally nothing to do with it, to anything that happened in your relationship in the past. I will always treat him as an extra element. All these years his wife has been punishing the only person, if you think about it, who is not even to blame for this situation. I'm just disgusted that you agreed to this at the expense of your son. You and your wife can be considered bad parents for what you did to your son, and for your information, you are really bad for taking his phone away from him. Adam, you wanted stability so badly that you decided that you would treat the child as an inconvenience or an object. Thank you for forgiving me, Dad. During these endless years, the man subjected this poor boy to. It was like this: my wife hates your very existence because of something I did once. Of course, I understand the desire to preserve your marriage to this woman, but if the conditions are so bad, then you need to end those thoughts. And in general, forgive your wife for making your son feel unwanted and a complete waste in life, and then you punished him for behaving like that, instead of empathizing with him and trying to understand. Your wife is not responsible for your infidelity. Thank you all for your comments. I'll add some information. Okay, I get it. I'm a complete asshole. I gave my son back his new phone. It seems that everyone started thinking that I took it away forever. But I didn't. It was supposed to be a punishment for a week. I tried to talk to my son, but he didn't want to talk then. Although he talked to my other son, he told me that his brother was very upset, and then he didn't come because he thought I didn't want to see him. And the reason he didn't tell us where he went, as I thought it was to ruin my evening and make me angry. I called my son, I apologized and said that we were getting back together. I promised him that this time he would come with me and everything would be fine. He seemed happy about it. I also talked to my wife. I told him that as much as I would like my son to come with us, I would have said so. But if she can't be in the same car as my son, then she needs to find someone else to give her a ride. My wife went to her parents. I don't know what she will do next. I don't know what she thinks now. Now I want to tell a different story. A few days ago, a family drama started in our house. Many friends and relatives have different opinions about it, so I don't know how right or wrong I am. My dad cheated on my mom when I was 7 years old. I know because I was the one who caught them one day. That night, I asked my mom about who my dad was cuddling with. After that, my parents' divorce started. And it's really not cool for a little kid, let me tell you. I never had a special relationship with my father. The custody battle between my parents was just unbearably awful, and my father's mistress was pregnant with my stepbrother, who was 11 months old. So they got married quickly after my mom and dad broke up. And just believe me, my dad did a lot of things to be angry with him. Then, I told him with a clear mind that I hated him. Then I stopped talking to him. The time of ignoring my dad began when it was visitation time, until he stopped coming to see me at all. My mom remarried, and my stepfather has become a much better person and treats me like his own son. So I never had to miss my biological father. My family on my mom's side still keeps in touch with my dad, and I just go to my mom's house for all the holidays. I can and see them when he's not there. However, my aunt is very ill. She asked me to at least talk to my dad because she is sad and hurt that we do not communicate. She knows how much my dad misses me. I decided to talk anyway because I couldn't say no to my aunt. So, a few weeks ago we talked on the phone. And even then we met for lunch with my dad. I told him that for my aunt's sake, I was ready to date, but only with him, but never with the family he created again. And he could take it or leave it. He had a great desire to introduce me to his half-brothers, but my father agreed to my conditions. One day, he calls me for lunch. Meanwhile, his wife was at a restaurant with their 2 children. The younger one is 11 years old. I became very angry, but we were in public, so I gave my father a deadly look. I had no desire to make any scenes. I immediately started texting my stepfather. I asked him to come and get me as soon as possible. The little boy asks, "Am I angry?" Because my mom ran away with me and I couldn't grow up with them. At that moment, I got really angry. Although I probably shouldn't have done it then. I told them honestly that their dad cheated on my mom with their mom, and by doing so, he destroyed our family and my life. And I am very angry just because he was a traitor to my mom and me. The children looked shocked at that moment. An argument started between us. A little later, I pulled myself together and calmed down as soon as I saw my stepfather coming to pick me up. Now I realize that perhaps the children did not know about all these events, and now they are obviously angry with their father and mother. My father's wife is angry with him, and especially with me. My dad is very upset and wants me to apologize to them all. Now our families are discussing this situation from all sides, but my mom said that I made my aunt cry when she heard about this situation between me and my dad's family. My mom says that I just told the truth and it shouldn't be considered wrong. But she also says that I should have just waited for my stepfather and not to lose my temper then. I am sure that the children are not to blame. Maybe they didn't need to know all this, and I should have just kept it to myself. Besides, it upset my aunt, and she's not in the best physical condition right now. So maybe my running away caused her unnecessary stress. Ezekiel, you obviously weren't happy about what your dad did. I'm sure your dad and his new wife are. Obviously, they lied to your half-brothers about what happened. Once upon a time in your life and your mom's life, you reacted with anger when you were suddenly blinded by fantasies that their parents had fed them for years about you. So your anger was a natural reaction, and although you could have handled it differently, I think you'd be hard-pressed to find another person, no matter what age or gender, who would have held up in that situation. I don't know what your father was thinking at the time. Even, I'm glad you had the father you deserved, and that was your wonderful stepfather. It seems like your biological father hasn't matured over the years that have passed since. He was no longer in your and your mom's lives. Dad hasn't grown up and learned to appreciate people's honesty more. That's why you're ashamed of him, not of you. Ivy, your father abused your trust that he gained not so long ago, and they clearly lied to their children about your mom running away. That's just not fair. Children deserve to know the truth if they want to have a relationship with you. It's probably harsh, but it's the parents' fault, not yours. Carson, you didn't make your aunt cry. Your thoughtless father did. You gave him a chance and he ruined it. And so it's none of your business to support their lies, the lies he tells to cover up their stupid actions. That are hard to forgive. You can tell your dad the following. Imagine that you have destroyed your aunt's goodwill, the last chance from your long-estranged son, and your tower of lies to your younger children, and all of this just to get them to go to a dinner together, which was not even discussed. Gabriella, wow, it's not like you were electrocuted at the age of 7. Just like that, because it was your biological father who gave you that shock. He was too concerned about his own life. He didn't think about the consequences. He didn't want his little son to witness it. So, by dad's standards, the 11-year-old stepbrother is old enough to know the truth. My next story. My daughter is 17 years old. She loves baking and working as a baker. My daughter bakes cakes and some sweets. This is how she earns her living. She sells her work to relatives, friends, and different people. And it's like me and my dad do too. Recently, my husband, who is my daughter's stepfather, turned 46 years old. He asked my daughter to bake a birthday cake for him. She could not refuse him. I told my husband that I would pay her. He replied, "You're going to pay her? Go away from here with those words. I am her father," I insisted. That she is a human being. She always agrees and likes to make people happy. Therefore, my daughter will not be able to openly demand money from her husband. Then the man said he would pay his daughter. But days passed and he did not pay her a cent, and it looks like he's not going to anymore. So I decided to take matters into my own hands. I decided to sell the gold chain. I bought it for my husband for his birthday, and to pay my daughter for her husband. My husband found out about it and got angry with me. I told him that he had enough time, and he had to pay his daughter. A week before he would receive the cake from his daughter, he said that I was teaching my daughter to treat family, relationships as a business, as a profitable relationship, and I'm forcing her to be too attached to money. I tried to explain to him how much time, effort, and even money my daughter had invested in making this cake, but he just attacked me. He started calling me stupid for what I did, that I had done something unworthy, that I, as a mother, allowed my daughter to expect so much from the family, that my daughter should help the family. Without getting anything in return, my husband was furious and told all his family and friends about how useful I was, that I even took his birthday present and didn't give it back. That shame from my family members was enough for me to make me start thinking that maybe I was behaving in the wrong way and rushed into that action. Somehow, I don't feel good about this whole situation. But in the end, my daughter wanted and expected to be paid. If she had wanted it to be free, I would have had no problem keeping my mouth shut. Besides, that chain is not expensive. I kept the rest of the money after I gave my daughter her fair share of the work. Stella, I've never heard anyone in my life expect that he should be paid for making a cake for the birthday of a close relative, especially a person who has become like a dad to you. I mean, if your daughter owned a small place where they bake sweets and your husband went there and ordered a cake, then you could wait for payment. Matteo, seriously, for you as his wife, it would be perfectly normal if your daughter provided a cake for her birthday, regardless of whether she made it herself or if she bought that cake from a local bakery. So if you wanted your daughter to be the one to make the cake for your husband, and you wanted her to get paid for her work, then you had to pay her from the beginning to avoid such unpleasant situations later. Julian, and you even kept the change. This is the act of a silly goat, not a normal wife. I believe all these stories about married couples, where absolutely all finances are separate, it's a bad story for the couple, especially when it comes to money. Married couples start asking themselves quite strange and uncomfortable questions, and all this leads to such problems. You should make joint bank accounts and healthy communication relationships in the family. Gabriel, I'm not going to call anyone a bad person, because I think a lot of it comes down to unpleasant details, especially about the timing and who asked what from whom. But it's an extremely strange thing to make such a conflict. I mean, seriously, who expects a family member to pay for a holiday? Should know, must pay for a birthday cake for his own birthday. This is just stupid to read. Addison, who has created many accounts and is waging a war for a man and represents someone who definitely doesn't want to be paid that much to defend her on her own. And then he returns the gift altogether, as if it were revenge, instead of just reminding the man. But also, who the hell is in his right mind? He makes a fool of his wife in front of everyone present because of a birthday present. After conducting an experiment, I am diagnosing you all a strange and stupid disease. Now your treatment is to drink a large glass of water and count to 20. At the same time, breathe out slowly and relax. A story that really surprised me. I'm 20 years old and I'm friends with Nicholas, who is also 20 years old. We've been friends since childhood. Our parents were friends, especially our moms. When my friend and I were growing up, we practically grew up together, me and Nicholas. We continue to be close friends throughout all these years. We both attend the same university. 6 months ago, Nicholas started dating a girl named Quinn. She is the same age as him. At first, they were just friends, but it eventually turned into a relationship. They have been officially dating for 3 months now. When they started dating, my friend introduced us right away. I am his closest friend. At first I thought it was just shyness when we met because I am his close friend, and she obviously needed to get along with her boyfriend's friend. But it became clear to me very quickly that the girl just had problems with our friendship, and everything is not as smooth as I would like it to be. Last Sunday, our friend had a party for the Day of the Dead. His girlfriend Quinn came with a friend. She told Nicholas that she and her friend would wear the same costume. So Nicholas asked me if we wanted to make a costume together. I thought it was a cool idea. We decided to be Ricky and Morty from the legendary cartoon. I think on Saturday he told the girl that this was happening, and suddenly she changed her mind. So she wanted to make a couple costume with her friend. When he saw what she was doing, my friend told her that he was against it. His girlfriend wrote me a message asking. She asked me if I wanted to change my costume to some other one. I told her no. No, because I had already spent my money on this suit. I didn't know if I could return it to that store. Besides, I quickly had to get another suit. An hour later, I started receiving a large number of messages and calls. All of them were from random numbers. I assume it was probably from her friends. They were calling me bad names in the conversation, trying to insult me. All Sunday, the friend's girlfriend was sulking at me, and one of her friends seemed to be consoling the girl all evening. It was just uncomfortable and unpleasant to see that picture. Nicholas approves and tells me that we did nothing wrong, but I know from him that he is biased because he is my friend. I am so confused in all this. I want to hear a third party's opinion. By the way, I don't plan to tell my friend about the messages. None of them were pleasant, but I wouldn't call it very scary either. They were just mean. I'm going to make her understand. I really hope it was an accidental act, even though it is completely different from the girl's usual character. Jordan, I think so. It would be one thing if she wanted to wear the same costume as her boyfriend Nicholas. Only in that case could she get away with it. But she, as a girl, has an advantage over you as a friend. The truth of the matter was that it wasn't like that. Her insults and the fact that strangers were calling you, they bombarded your phone with messages and calls. It all just seems ridiculous, no matter what anyone says. But there can always be some awkwardness when you start dating someone, especially if you have a close friend of the opposite sex. But if a girl wants to talk about your boundaries, then she should do it in a more normal way. Bryson, your friend Nicholas, needs to find a better girl. This is not appropriate behavior for a 20-year-old man. This is more like the behavior of a teenage girl. Of about 14, the girl is jealous, and the fact that she wrote your number for people you don't know, it's already crossing the line. She has ruined everything in your relationship with your friend. Ignore her, and then you will see how insanely insecure she is. Ariana, please show your friend these messages. Man, let your friend tell you if this is out of character. It's obvious that she sees you as a threat to the relationship. Be a good friend and tell him what's going on with his girlfriend.